Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for His Way, which is episode 20 of season 6 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. This review is a part of series reviews where I review episodes of Star Trek as requested by my viewers. This review was requested by Isaac Dubeas. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, which I probably did. His Way is the episode in which Dr. Bashir introduces his crewmates to a new holosuite program that features a lounge singer named Vic Fontaine. This is no ordinary hologram, as he is aware he's a hologram and aware of the outside world and his surroundings, but more than that, he seems to be very skilled at reading people and giving advice. Odo learns that Kira is going to Bajor to visit her ex, Shakar, which upsets Odo, so he seeks Vic Fontaine's advice, and Vic begins to tutor Odo on how best to win over Kira, and his teachings doesn't seem to go that good at first, so Vic tricks Odo into thinking he's having a date with a hologram made to look and act like Kira, but it turns out it actually is Kira, and when the two find out they've been tricked by Fontaine, they become upset with him and each other. However, from the date, Kira learns she does indeed have feelings for Odo, and they confront each other in the promenade that ends with them kissing and a new romantic relationship is formed. So this episode introduces two big landmarks in the show that would follow until its ending. First is the romantic relationship between two of the show's leads, Odo and Kira, and the second is the introduction of the secondary character Vic Fontaine. The first one is something I was a huge fan of and think enhanced the show's final season, and the second I saw as a huge mistake that severely lessened the quality of the show's final season. First, let me talk about Kira and Odo's relationship. Throughout the first two seasons of the show, these characters had a close working relationship, and these characters really seemed to gel. Part of the reason may be that these two main characters who were in the Bajoran militia rather than Starfleet, and also these were the two no-nonsense characters who are always on the offensive, and for lack of a better word, they were the fighters of the show. So whenever two characters of opposite genders gel like this in a TV show, it inevitably leads to a romance. In this case, however, it was revealed in the third season of the show that Odo had feelings for Kira that she didn't reciprocate. So throughout the third and fourth seasons, it would often be played at that Odo had feelings for her and he tries to hide it from her, until towards the end of the fifth season when Kira learns about Odo's feelings for her, which initially made things uncomfortable between them, but then came a topic that they just avoided. That is until this episode, where things finally come to a head, where Odo, with the help of a singing hologram, finally managed to win her over. So I was a huge fan of the Kira and Odo relationship, as I feel it's one of the few romantic relationships between main characters in Star Trek that actually worked. And it was particularly effective in the show's final ending arc of episodes. In fact, my main complaint would be that it took them so long to put these two together. I think it was obvious that they had never intended to put these two characters together and always intended to play it as a crush that was never reciprocated. But I think they finally got sick of playing it like that and decided to try something different. However, this episode feels really sudden and rushed, whereas they could have done a slow burn and really built up to this important relationship. In the third season episode Heart of Stone, the female changeling impersonates Kira and pretends to be trapped in a growing crystal-like trap that will kill her, in order to make Odo think Kira had died, so Odo's affections for the solids will lessen. However, Odo discovers her ruse when she professes her love for Odo, because Odo says he could tell that Kira never had feelings for him, and because he could read her behavior, and therefore he knew she was lying. However, all of a sudden, in this episode, Kira does have feelings for him. I mean, I suppose they tried to explain this away by saying Kira didn't have feelings for him before and just changed her mind, but this was a very sudden change and seemed quite unrealistic that she would just so drastically change her mind like this because of one date. As I said, I think they overplayed this crush thing for far too long, and it was just getting really tiresome. And I had wished that they simply brought them together earlier, as I think they did have better chemistry from the get-go than many other Star Trek pairings that were just disastrous, such as Troy and Worf, Chakotay and 709, and the worst offender because it lasted so long and even led to a marriage and a kid, Tom Paris and B'Elanna Torres. That pairing was just awful. However, Odo and Kira actually did work, and it took them too long to finally put them together, and the way they did it with this ridiculous episode about a lounge singing hologram was not the right way to do it. This episode was pretty ridiculous, with Odo trying to loosen up as he pretended to play the piano and become more loose and cool. In fact, I thought the way they played his character in this episode was a bit ridiculous and slightly ruined the character. He just acted like an idiot, not the Odo that we've grown to love. So now let me address the elephant in the room, Vic Fontaine. I've seen many on the net express positive feelings and affection for this character. I cannot for the life of me fathom why, as I find him the most annoying, ridiculous, and stupid character to be introduced in the Trek universe. I really cannot stand this guy. I think a large part of it is due to my dislike of the whole lounge singing genre, and the fact that whenever he appears, they force us to sit through these long sequences with him singing classic lounge songs, which is just boring and slows the episode down. I absolutely, positively cannot stand when episodes do that, and this episode in particular is quite guilty of that, as it has 3 long sequences that drag out with this stupid singing hologram, which frankly makes this episode really hard to rewatch, and personally I'd much rather not. It seems to be, some of the show's producers, probably in particular Ira Steven Bearer, as he seems like the type, are just obsessed with Vegas lounge singers, and so they decided it would be great to have one on a science fiction show about a space station taking place 400 years in the future, which in actuality is the last fucking thing this show needed. I understand the role this character is supposed to fulfill, to be the wise, insightful character that the main cast goes to for advice and help them see the light. This role was most notably filled by Guinan on Star Trek The Next Generation, and other Star Trek series didn't necessarily have a character like this, except maybe Dr. McCoy sometimes fulfilled this role in the original series, but he had many other functions as well. Guinan is a more specific example of a role Vic Fontaine is meant to fulfill, and having him be the one that finally brings together Odo and Kira after 3 seasons of teasing this would establish him from the get-go as someone who gives great advice. In the first season, Jadzia Dax kind of took on this role, but they would later completely change her character to make her more of a hothead and less wise. So I don't mind having, a character like this. That's not what bothers me. I never really had a problem with Guinan, although I didn't think her character was all that necessary either. Plus, it's a bit odd they decided to introduce this character so late in the game, and there was just little over 1 season left. Really, the show would have gotten along perfectly fine without him. That being said, it's not the wise person people go to for advice aspect of the character I can't stand. I think it's kind of cliched, not entirely necessary, but I can live with it. It's the singing hologram part of it that I have a huge problem with. I mentioned in another one of my reviews how the Star Trek spin-offs always use the holodeck to introduce elements from the 20th century in order to make it more relatable to a 20th century audience. And I typically find doing that a bit obvious and unnecessary. Has this just goes over the top, though. Vic Fontaine is as subtle as a sledgehammer that they're really trying to introduce a Vegas lounge singer into a science fiction set 400 years in the future, and they use the excuse of the holosuites to do so, and I think that's bullshit, personally. Also, it kind of breaks the continuity in Star Trek. For instance, compare this episode to the second season Next Generation episode, Elementary Dear Data, whereby there some mysterious accident causes a holodeck character portraying Professor James Moriarty is accidentally given sentience. Picard, Data, and the others are absolutely shocked when they learn Moriarty is aware of his surroundings and can actually see the Enterprise officers for who they are, as typically holograms on the holodeck are programmed to be oblivious to this. They're shocked that it managed to happen, and in fact, in Moriarty's second appearance in the episode Ship in a Bottle, Picard mentions that the Federation's greatest scientists are baffled on how this happened. Add to that, Moriarty becomes obsessed with leaving the holodeck. Cut to this episode, which destroys all of what is established in those episodes with this one scene.
I know what you're thinking. He has pretty sweet pipes for a light bulb.
Light bulb?
That's what I am, right? Collection of photons and force fields. Your basic, heuristic, fully interactive hologram.
He knows he's a hologram? Felix designed him that way. He thought it would give him the right attitude for the era.
So, some mysterious guy who's mentioned throughout the rest of the series but never seen, kind of like Norm's wife from Cheers and Niles' wife from Frasier, just decides to do something that baffled the Federation's greatest scientists for over 4 years, and they just shrug it off like it's no big deal because singing holograms are cool, I guess. And I guess Felix programmed him to be totally okay with being turned on and off at the whim of others and being confined to the holosuites, because Moriarty sure as hell wasn't okay with it. However, in the 7th season, he does strike a deal where he gets to stay on constantly. Now, I know you might say Vic wasn't the first one to contradict what was established with Moriarty, because there was also the Doctor from Voyager. However, he wasn't programmed to be sentient. He was programmed to be a complex medical hologram capable of interacting with crew members, and his character development into sentience is more related to the fact that he was kept on constantly, which was never the intention, and him and Torres making modifications to his program to accommodate this. So it wasn't the same thing as Felix just deciding to make a lounge singing hologram sentient. So I guess Felix was just like, oh, what the hell, let's just do it. If there's one hologram that deserves sentience, it's a fucking lounge singer. Plus, let's talk about the scene where Odo thinks Kira is a hologram because Vic tricked them. This scene was so bloody cheesy. It was right out of a cheesy 80s sitcom. In fact, I could even imagine like a laugh track being played over this scene.
Truth is, I'm a little nervous.
You nervous?
A bit. It is a first date, right?
Right. Well, there's nothing wrong with being a little nervous, as long as it doesn't get in the way. You're enjoying yourself.
Thought the only thing you enjoy is your work.
How'd you know that?
You told me yourself.
Well done, Vic.
I understand that you wouldn't be comfortable at Quark's, but I know 1 or 2 out-of-the-way restaurants on the station.
Well, I don't think that's possible.
Are you embarrassed of being seen with me?
No. No. I meant it would be difficult for you to leave the holosuite.
Why?
Well, it's complicated.
Complicated to leave a holosuite? You make it sound like I'm a hologram.
Aren't you?
Is that what you think?
Maybe you'd better tell her.
There's nothing to tell. I'm good, Pally, but I'm not that good. You've been dancing with the real McCoy.
You tricked me.
And me.
Yeah, I brought you 2 lovebirds together. That was the whole idea, wasn't it?
Kira. Major.
It was just so dumb and totally beneath what Deep Space Nine can accomplish and should be doing. Also, this episode's story arc just doesn't work, as Odo never actually makes any progress with Vic as they practice in the holosuites.
We're gonna see Shecky! Oh!
Shecky?
Shecky who?
Oh, you didn't tell me he had a sense of humor.
He plays the piano and he's funny. Kinda like Victor Borga.
Who?
But when he goes on the actual date with Kira, all of a sudden he's acting like this suave, confident, cool guy, whereas before he was behaving like a bumbling idiot. The story does nothing to earn this character development. So my rating for His Way is a 3, very poor. I appreciate that this was the episode that finally brought Odo and Kira together, and the final scene at the end of this episode with their first kiss was pulled off really well, and it was a great fun way to get them together. But overall, this episode was really cheesy, and a very obvious and clunky way to try to introduce a ridiculous character that should have never been introduced in the first place. And I hate watching this episode because I have to sit through so many long, drawn-out, loud-singing songs. I mean, I don't watch Deep Space Nine to see some Tom Jones wannabe singing Frank Sinatra songs for 3 minutes at a time. I watch it to see good science fiction, not a fucking variety show with musical acts from hacks. So that's it for my review on His Way. If there's a Star Trek episode you'd like me to review from any of the 5 Star Trek series, make a comment below with an episode you'd like me to review, and I'll endeavor to do so. However, I've mostly gotten requests for Deep Space Nine episodes. In fact, I have 2 Deep Space Nine episodes on my wait list. I have yet to get a request for a Voyager or Enterprise episode. I've particularly been hampering to do Voyager episodes, so if anyone wants to help me out with a request for a Voyager episode, it would be appreciated. And make sure you subscribe to keep up with all that, and thanks a lot for watching.